Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's webinar, Inflation and PPOs in 2024, Gear Up for Better Reimbursements. My name is Shirley, and I'm going to be your moderator tonight. I am so excited to welcome Phylip Curtis as our speaker this evening. Hi, Phylip. Thanks so much for joining us.
I'm excited to be here.
He is the Director of Sales and Marketing for Unitas Dental. Over the past 8 years, Phylip has implemented and managed business development, sales, marketing, and IT departments for Unitas. Before we get started, I'd love to take a moment to go over some quick housekeeping. If you have a question tonight, please email it to webinars@henryschein.com. And I'm going to go ahead and put that into the chat so you'll be able to grab it from there. But in case you can't, I'm going to repeat it. It's webinars, plural, at henryschein.com. WEBINARS for Sam, at henryschein.com. HENRYSCHEIN.com. CE is not available tonight for this evening's webinar, but we'd love to get your questions, so go ahead and email them to us. And Phylip, welcome and thank you for being with us tonight. I'm going to pass it over to you now.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Shirley. Just want to make sure you can hear me okay. I'm going to put my mic up a little bit closer.
Yep, we can hear you perfectly.
All right. Awesome. Super excited to go through this information today. I appreciate the introduction, Shirley. Kind words. What we're going to talk about today is the big hot topic of not only inflation being in the current economic climate today, but in preparation for 2024 coming into a new year. One of the most important things that doctors are looking at right now are the reimbursement rates that they're getting paid from their insurance companies. So we're going to gear up and talk about how you can improve those PPO reimbursements in the coming year in anticipation of inflation increasing, but then also just in general, every doctor obviously wants to be paid more. Everybody's due for a raise. So we're going to talk about that framework today. But again, like Shirley mentioned, my name is Phylip Curtis. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing here at Unitas. Here's my email address. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to shoot me an email. It's just my name, Phylip with a Y and one L, PHYLIP at unitasdental.com. All right, so let's jump in. Let's dive into the nitty gritty. We're talking today about specifically the PPO profitability problem that most of you are encountering today. So when we're talking about inflation, obviously every business is experiencing this. So every business has costs rising, but specifically with dental, obviously your costs are rising as well. Salaries go up, rent goes up, equipment goes up, things get more expensive. But do your PPO reimbursements reflect these rising costs is the big question. And again, if they don't increase, then what's going to happen? So herein lies the PPO profitability problem that most of you are probably already experiencing, which is over a certain amount of time, once you've treated enough patients and you've kind of maxed out your schedule, there's only so much revenue that you can generally make as a business, specifically as a practice each year. And the big crux of the matter, the thing that's inhibiting your growth beyond that is obviously, we can't do more treatment, and we can't bring in more patients. And so ultimately what we're getting paid is the lever that needs to be pulled. If you're only ever paid X for the given procedures that you're doing, you're only going to get paid X, right? And the difficult part with being a provider of dental services is that the reimbursement rates that you get paid by insurance company are set by the insurance. And unless you negotiate them, they'll never increase. And so we're all being chased by the same problem right now, which is overhead is increasing specifically right now at an increasing rate due to inflation. And so as the overhead creeps up and up and up, but if you've been capped in the amount of patients that you can treat, eventually they're going to catch up. And so what's going to happen, if it's not already, is that your net profit that you're making each year, that dentists as a business owner are looking out for, which obviously that's why your business is to end up making a profit, that's going to shrink over time. So your ability to pay more for your employees, your ability to contribute to your retirement, your ability to pay yourself more at the end of the year, all that's going away and it's going away and it's going away. And so therein lies the problem right now. Unless somebody comes along and increases the reimbursement rates that you're getting paid, you either have to do more dentistry or treat more patients. Otherwise, there's no other way for you to grow. And in fact, it's not just an anecdotal problem. This is something that the ADA themselves has done a recent poll on this year. And of those ADA dentists polled, 57% of dentists have seen no increase in their reimbursements in the last 12 months. In fact, 25% have seen a decrease to the reimbursement rates that they're getting paid by insurance companies. So in total, that means over 82% of dentists have reimbursement rates that are not keeping up with the rising costs. So my big question to you is, are you one of those dentists, or are you one of those dental practices? Odds are you probably are, not just because 82% is a pretty big number. And I would argue it's probably higher than that. But obviously, if you're on the webinar today, then you're probably experiencing that problem, or you will experience that problem pretty soon. So the PPO profitability solution that we're going to talk about today is, unless you increase your PPO reimbursement rates through negotiating, your profitability is going to continue to shrink. So you're going to keep working harder and you're going to keep earning less. And so the pendulum that can swing in that direction the most easily is going to be the reimbursement rates that you're paid by insurance carriers. Not every doctor has the ability or the desire or the capacity to work more hours or treat more patients. And a lot of times that's dependent on having employees, marketing that's working, staff in place, open chair time. And if you don't have any of that, or it's too expensive or too difficult for that to work, this is something that you can control, which is what you're getting paid by the insurance companies, which I'm sure to a lot of you sounds kind of like a surprise. Most doctors make the assumption that what they're paid by insurance companies is fixed. It's determined by the insurance company, and then they have no power to determine what they're paid. And the lucky answer for you today is that's not true. A lot of reimbursement rates are negotiable. There's a lot of optimization options out there. The good news for doctors right now is that they can control and improve their reimbursement rates if they take the proper steps to do so. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So hopefully that excites you. So what we're going to cover is our proprietary negotiation and optimization framework that we implement for our own clients. The reason why we're talking about this today is not every client wants to work with Unitas to implement this framework. Not every client can, and we can't work with everybody. And so what we'd rather do is for the collective country, the collective nation of dentists, is to approach this process because we believe, obviously, that a rising tide lifts all ships. And so ultimately, we want everybody to improve their reimbursement rates. And so this is the framework that we're teaching and putting out to the marketplace so people know what they can do and what kind of options they have. So what we're going to go through today are the three core pieces of the puzzle that Unitas implements that you can implement in your own practice today if you like, which is number one, how you can identify and map out what your specific PPO participation is per doctor and identify issues. So figuring out which PPOs you're actually taking, how you're supposed to be paid by them, what relationship you have with those, how to identify that and find out that information. Second thing we're going to talk about is how you can utilize our proven 3-step negotiation framework to boost your success. Then we'll talk about the calculations that you can use to forecast. If you're going to take this on, you're going to work with somebody to try to accomplish this, what is the projected return on investment that you could expect, or what type of calculations should you use if you're trying to forecast that? So we're going to go through all that information today. Hopefully you're excited about that. But if you're ready to furiously take notes, you absolutely don't have to do that. We actually have a free guide here available for everybody that's on the webinar. So if you go to www.ppoguide.com or you scan this QR code, you can go download this framework right now and just put in your name in your email. You can download basically a PDF workbook of the slides that we're going to talk about today. There's nothing that's more annoying to me than sitting on a big webinar, taking a bunch of notes, and then losing those notes or feeling like I've missed some pieces. So what we've done is we've distilled down all the core pieces of today's presentation in a workbook style so that way you can print it out, implement it in your own practice. The last thing I want you to do is sit on this call for 45 minutes and learn all this information and not be able to implement it. And so this PPO guide is our ability to give you kind of the step-by-step without you having to take a bunch of notes. So if you want, go download that now. You print it out if you're in the office now and you actually start taking notes on it if you want. Otherwise, make sure that you print that out and give it to whoever it on your team is that you're going to have utilize and implement this framework. So scan that QR code if you don't like typing stuff in on your phone like I do. I don't like doing that. Or go to ppoguide.com and you can download it now. All right. So just a quick introduction into Unitas. So why do we know how to fix this? What makes us a credible resource here? So as you may know, Unitas has negotiated for dental practices since 2011. We've worked with thousands of practices in all 50 states. Right now, we currently represent over 1,800 dental practices nationwide. We have over 100 PPO insurance consultants on staff. This is all we do. We're one of the largest, if not the largest, negotiators in the country and credentialers in the country. So we have a lot of experience in this area, and that's why we're able to share this framework with you today. All right, let's dive in to number one, which is how are you going to identify and map out specifically which PPOs do you actually participate with per doctor, and then what type of issues are there and how will you identify those? So let's dive into number one. We're going to dive into 3 different topics here. Number one, how do you discover and map out the PPOs that you're participating with? What does that mean? And what type of participation types are there? The second thing is, how can you actually receive and document your actual fee schedules? So a lot of practices have fee schedules in their practice management softwares, but they're out of date. They just don't know that, or they do know it, and they're having a hard time getting a copy of those. So we'll talk about how to collect those fee schedules. The third thing is how to compare and repair any UCR, which is your office fee, and reimbursement from your PPO, any discrepancies between those two. We'll talk about that as well. All right, let's jump in. So if you want to figure out what your PPO participation is, there's a couple of things you have to understand at the outset. Number one, PPO participation essentially is just a fancy way of saying, how does this individual doctor have a relationship, or what is the contractual relationship this doctor has with this given insurance company? So there's a couple of things to understand. There's different ways that you can have that contractual relationship that influence how you're paid. That's what we call participation types. And then how you collect that, we'll go through that information. But that also, it's important to realize that participation follows the doctor, not the location or the billing entity. It's per doctor, per location, per billing entity. So how that works is there's 3 types of insurance participation. Let me explain what those are, and this will start to make a little bit more sense. Some practices think of insurance and the relationship a doctor has with insurance as like an on or an off switch. They basically think I'm either in network or I'm out of network, which is right. However, when it comes to negotiating and optimizing, it's actually just a little bit deeper than that. So when it comes to being in network, if you look deeper, there's actually 3 ways that you can be in network with an insurance company. And those are 3 different relationship types or participation types with an insurance company. So the first one and the most popular one is what's called a direct contract, which means if I am a dentist and I've filled out credentialing paperwork with Aetna and I agreed to be paid according to Aetna's fee schedule, those reimbursement rates, and I send that application into Aetna, they accept me as a provider. And now when I treat Aetna patients and I send a claim to Aetna, the claim comes back from Aetna and they're paying me according to the fee schedule that they gave me. That was published from their system. So what I probably just described to you is how insurance works, right? That's a direct contract. However, a more common thing that's happening to most providers that they don't realize is that you're likely going to be leased through your existing direct contracts. So what that means is when you've credentialed with a given insurance company, you've agreed to be paid X amount of dollars for these procedures and treat these patients in network, you've contractually agreed to that relationship. However, in the agreement that you've signed, there's a clause in there, and it exists in almost every insurance contract, that allows them to lease this relationship, them meaning the PPO, allows them to lease this contractual relationship out to other PPO companies that you have no relationship with now. What that means is somebody like Aetna can go to Guardian, and Guardian can say, hey, we don't have this doctor in network, but we want to get him in network, so we want to borrow him from you. How they would do that is Guardian would come to Aetna and say, hey, we see you've got these doctors in network. We want them in network. They'll pay Aetna a small fee. They'll sign paperwork, shake each other's hands. And now Guardian has this group or this particular dentist in network because they're borrowing them through the Aetna contract. So essentially, if I was a doctor and I never credentialed with Guardian, but if Guardian comes along and borrows me through Aetna, all that needs to happen is then these 2 insurance companies creating a contractual relationship, shaking hands, signing, and paying for this in order for me to now be in network with Guardian. And so if I was purposely not in network with Guardian, and then all of a sudden those patients start showing up at my practice, I might not bat an eye. I might just say, well, of course I'm going to submit the claim expecting that it's going to get paid out of network. But if anybody's listening to this and they've expected the claim to be paid out of network, and then all of a sudden they start being paid in network, so like for years or months, it's out of network, and then boop, now I'm in network. This is typically what's happened, is an out-of-network PPO has figured out how to lease you through an in-network contract you've already signed. Or another more common situation is for a long time, you were paid a specific PPO reimbursement for a given insurance company. So let's say you're always getting $85 for a pro fee from somebody. And then after 6 years or 6 months, all of a sudden it drops down to $55, and now you keep getting 55, 55, 55, or it jumps up or down. But now it's changed and it's still consistent. That typically means that you were being leased through one arrangement. So Guardian may have been leasing you through Aetna, and then Guardian decided to start now leasing you through Emeritus. And so Guardian went and contractually changed the relationship. And so you've been being paid this much from Guardian patients over and over and over, and then all of a sudden it's changed. They've switched the relationship. They've switched the source by which and the fee schedule by which they're going to pay you through. And so where it gets kind of confusing and why you might not notice it is you're still sending a claim to Guardian, claim's still coming back from Guardian. They're literally just borrowing a different company's fee schedule. So sometimes the EOB will say it's paid through Aetna or paid through somebody else. Sometimes it won't. And so the only way you would know that is to say, is this a fee schedule? Is this reimbursement rate on the fee schedule that I agreed to get paid through Aetna or through Emeritus or through Carrington? And so understanding this, the real way you figure this out is you gather your participation. You need to make phone calls and emails to each insurance company, regardless of whether or not you think you're in network with them, for every doctor, and ask, am I in network with you? And if so, how is this doctor participating? Are they direct? Are they being leased? If so, who are they being leased through? And what's the effective date of that contract? And what's the fee schedule? Because this will tell you if this is happening. Now, when I paint this picture, a lot of doctors immediately go, well, how is that legal? Or how can I get out of this? This doesn't sound like something I want to do, which is not my intention at all, because a lot of PPO leasing scenarios are actually some of the most profitable ways for you to be paid. So before you start trying to figure out how can I X myself out of these, think about it from this perspective. There's multiple ways that you can get paid for each insurance company. So what we'll talk about later on in the presentation is how do we take advantage of the fact that these relationships exist so that way you can get paid on the best possible reimbursement in the marketplace, okay? Because ultimately, it comes down to what the fee schedule looks like. So PPO to PPO leasing is the second type of relationship you can have with a given insurance company. The third type is an umbrella company. It's very similar to leasing. It's just kind of multiplied out by 10 or 15 or 20 underneath an umbrella. What an umbrella network is, also called a third-party administrator. Most umbrella networks aren't generally considered insurance companies. They don't typically provide insurance to patients. They don't typically have card-carrying patients. Now, there are some exceptions, but for the most part, companies like Dynamax and Connection, GEHA or GHA, if you want to call them that, Zealous, Premier Dental Group, they don't typically have card-carrying patients. When you join an umbrella, like one of these companies, they have a set of fee schedules, reimbursement rates that you can credential and join. But then what they'll do is they'll turn around and they'll shoot your information out to 5, 10, 15, 20 different PPOs that have agreed to participate in their network. And so why they have a network is these umbrella companies do a good job at getting doctors to credential with them onto their fee schedules. And then they turn around and create a lot of different relationships by which PPOs can lease through them. So if you credential with somebody like Dynamax and they turn around and shoot your information out to their network of 20 PPOs, you may fall in network with 5 or 10 or 15 insurance companies, all funneled through your Dynamax relationship, specifically your Dynamax fee schedule. So if you notice that for like a Profi or a Crown, you're getting paid a specific amount from this company and this company and this company, so it's always $253, $253, but different EOBs from different carriers, that generally is also a sign that those are being funneled through an umbrella company, right? That means lots of insurance companies are borrowing the contract of one main umbrella. Again, not necessarily a bad way to participate, it's just a way to participate. And the reason why I'm going into this much detail is if the goal here is to negotiate and optimize and improve the fee schedules, you first have to understand how you participate, the fact that participation is different, because how you participate now as a doctor will influence what you can and can't do in terms of negotiations, and it will influence the strategies you need to do. Just like if you do an x-ray on a patient, if you find out they have a cavity, you're going to fill the cavity. If you find out they need a root canal, we're not filling any cavities, we're doing a root canal, right? Same thing, if they need extraction, then we're not filling cavities either. So it's the same thing. The situation determines the strategy. Same thing with participation. Okay? So understanding how you participate is going to tell you what needs to be done in order to negotiate what you can and what you can't do. It's, if anything, it's an x-ray into what your current scenario is. Now, like I've said earlier, I'll reiterate this again, just to beat the dead horse. PPO participation follows the doctor. So what I'm talking about is when I credential, if I've got 4 doctors, I'm one of the 4, and if I own a location, I've credentialed with Aetna, I've sent in an application for Dr. Smith, Dr. John, and Dr. Bob. All 4 of us have credentialed with Aetna at this location under my tax ID number, but all of us have participation, right? And so what that means is it's very possible that I have a direct contract with Aetna, Dr. John has a direct contract, but Dr. Bob is being leased with Aetna through Guardian, and Dr. Smith is in network with Aetna through Sun Life, right? So all of us are in network. We all get our claims paid in network. But if you ever notice that you treat the same patient, but one doctor treats them and the other doctor treats them later, and you're both getting paid different reimbursement amounts, it's because you have different participation. And it doesn't matter if you sent the applications in on the same day. Participation follows the doctor, the tax entity, and the location. So it's possible for it to be different. It can start different, or it can start the same and end up different. Why this matters is the web that you're drawing to figure out how do I participate with every carrier has to be drawn for every single doctor at every single location, because not only can it be different, I can almost guarantee you it will be different. With how many thousands of locations we've done this on, doesn't matter what type of strategies you employ, participation can be changed, and it can be changed without you realizing it. You don't necessarily even have to do anything for it to be changed by an insurance company. So what I'm reiterating is, if I'm talking to any multi-location or multi-provider or multi-provider multi-location, you have to understand that it's going to be different. And so the detailed collection of this information is absolutely crucial, because if you're trying to get every doctor under the best possible fee schedule, that's great. But if all 4 doctors are starting out on different fee schedules because they're under different types of participation, and you want all of them to end up here, then the paths for each of them to get there will be different. Just like if everybody's driving to mom's house, but we all are all at our own houses, we're not taking the same route there. Same thing when it comes to optimization. If we're all trying to optimize the best fee schedule, that's fine, but we have to know if people are starting out at different places, because the paperwork and the structure and the cadence in which you optimize to get you to that fee schedule will be different depending on where you're starting. That makes sense to everybody? I hope I haven't beaten that dead horse all the way down, but that's what's super crucial for practices to understand, is collecting participation is arguably the most important part of this entire strategy. If you don't do it and you just make the assumption that, oh, all my doctors, we're all paid the same, that's one of the most dangerous assumptions you can make. My only analogy for this is we have twins. We have 7-month-old twins right now. So 5 years from now, I take them into the dentist's office and they take an x-ray on my son and they go, oh, he's got a cavity. And they try to drill and fill the cavity for him and just assume that my daughter, his twin sister, also has a cavity because they're twins. That would be crazy, right? Nobody would ever do that. Like, well, you're twins, so if he has a cavity, she also has a cavity. Obviously, nobody would ever do that. But that's almost as silly as the assumption that providers make when they go, I know we're all in network the same way. I guarantee you're not. There's just no way. We see it all the time. We see it all the time with doctors that they assume that they are. And if they move towards negotiating and optimizing with a false assumption, they can not only not end up actually achieving and getting them a higher fee schedule, they can actually end up hurting themselves by saying, because I thought we were all participating the same, I actually ended up ruining a good relationship I had here. And now I can't get back onto that fee schedule again because I tried to negotiate all of us when I didn't realize that we were all paid different amounts. And this doctor was actually paid the best, but the insurance company caught that and I didn't. And so now they put all of us on the same fee schedule, but he actually came down and she went up and he came down in terms of reimbursement rates. So that's what I'm talking about when it comes down to participation. You have to assume that it's different, because 9 times out of 10, you'll be right with a lot of these insurance companies. Okay. Dead horse officially beaten, but that's the most important piece of information that I can share with you today. Second thing is, in the midst of doing all this, it's difficult to collect this information, but you have to know who to reach out to, and you need to know what to say in order to gather it. It takes a lot of time, but it's not impossible. So receiving and documenting your participation and your fee schedules is possible. You just have to call, check your portal, send an email to whoever you have contact with. So if you're calling provider relations, they generally can answer this question. If you have a portal or an email address, you can generally ask for this information. How does my doctor participate with you? What is the current fee schedule? Is she in network? Is he out of network? What's the effective date? All that can be gathered typically through calling or emailing each of the insurance companies. Now you have to be persistent and follow up and follow up and follow up, because a lot of times it takes forever for them to respond, or they might not necessarily understand exactly what you're asking, but it can be gathered. You just need to be very specific, because sometimes you'll ask and you say, I have 4 doctors. How are they participating? And then they'll respond back saying they're in network. And you'll say, okay, I need to know, how are they in network? Are they direct? Are they leased? Right? So you got to dig and find all that detail of information. The second thing you need to do is, once you get that fee schedule in a copy of the existing reimbursement rates, obviously update your Dentrix or your practice management software so that way you have the most current up-to-date fee schedules in your system. Otherwise, your treatment plans and your estimates will be way off. So that's another thing you want to do. Also, additionally, that's what we're starting. That's what we're trying to improve. So we want to know, what is the baseline? What am I actually supposed to be paid right now? And the answer to that is, what is the fee schedule showing me from Aetna? So what did Aetna give me in terms of a fee schedule? What does it say I'm going to get paid? That's what I'm starting with. Okay. Now, another thing you want to do is, one of the most overlooked or most common problems that practices face is they don't realize that a lot of times they have UCRs, which again, UCRs are your office fees. So your price, your sticker price for your procedures. A lot of offices have UCRs that they haven't raised in a long time, either because they don't want to, because they want to be competitive in their area, or they haven't thought about it, or maybe they don't think it matters because they always get paid just a discount off of that from the PPO. But the reason why it matters is because high UCRs correlate to high reimbursements. The equation that a PPO takes into account at a micro level with a doctor and a macro level for the nation is, what are doctors submitting for UCRs? What are they saying the market value is for these procedures? So if everybody's submitting around $85 to $105 for a pro fee, well, then I'm going to pay 50, 60, 70% of that discount, right? Because I need to show a discount that I'm paying a portion to the patients. That's the value proposition of insurance, is that we're going to cover a portion or the majority of the covered service fee, and then depending on the patient's plan level, they'll pay the difference or it will be waived, right? So ultimately, a high UCR is going to correlate with a high reimbursement rate. So if you don't raise your UCRs annually or evaluate them annually, you're missing out and potentially increasing your fee schedules. You're also decreasing the overall average for your area, because PPOs are going to keep thinking, well, I guess this is what the market rate is. If it's $85 and it's been $85 for 30 years, they're not going to just arbitrarily raise the PPO fee schedule. They're also never going to want to pay above your UCR. And so what we want to do is we want to take all those fee schedules you've collected. You want to put them into a spreadsheet, focus in on the main procedure codes that you do the most frequently. What is my UCR? What am I being paid for each of these for each PPO? And then start looking horizontally and saying, do I have any UCRs that are below what a PPO's fee schedule says that I'm supposed to be reimbursed? So if I have a UCR set at $60 and I'm getting 70, 75, 50, 40, 30, 20, well, 75 is higher than my UCR, and I'm never going to actually be paid that amount because PPOs will not pay you above your UCR. They're going to take a discount off of it. So again, you're kind of cutting your legs out from underneath you by submitting a UCR that's below what a PPO is willing to pay. Okay, so also another thing that you can do is you may also just be cutting yourself short because you're not competitive for your area. So there's a lot of available percentile-based analysis tools. We do this for our clients. Henry Schein has one that allows you to analyze, how do my UCRs compare to other doctors in my area? So am I competitive? Am I average, above average? Because you want to be obviously at or above the average to have high competitive UCRs, because that's going to correlate with high competitive reimbursements. Okay. Another plug for this. I know I'm talking really fast and there's a lot of information, but if you didn't do this at the beginning, make sure you do it now. Go download this free guide, www.ppoguide.com, or scan that QR code and download the worksheet of what we're going through right now. All right, number 2. So once you've gathered your participation, you know what your fee schedules are. Now we want to negotiate. We want to improve those reimbursement rates. So how do we do that? Let's talk about the steps that Unitas would recommend. So for us, there's really 3 things to think about. Number 1, we want to talk about making sure that you're not wasting time on the wrong procedures. Number 2, we'll talk about how do you actually approach the negotiation process. So who should you talk to? What should you say? And the third thing is if you get a PPO to respond back to you with an offer, how do you compare that? How do you make sure that it's competitive? What are the formulas that you should take into consideration before you accept an increased fee schedule from an insurance company? Okay, let's dive into each of those. First one, ensuring you don't waste time on the wrong procedures is pretty easy if you do the math and you pull the correct data out of your production summary and your practice management software. So what you're going to do is you're going to export what's called an annual production summary from your practice management software. Make sure that the report lists 3 pieces of information. It needs to be a 12-month period of time. It needs to put in column 1, the CDT code that you do, how many times that was performed in the year, the quantity, and the production generated, right? So you would see D0120, we did 1,500 of them, and we generated $1.2 million, right? And it would be for every CDT code, right? Some of them come out for the whole practice. Some of them will group them by provider. Ideally, you want to combine all that data, because what you're trying to look for is, what are my highest grossing, highest revenue producing CDT codes that we perform? What we find, the magic number is typically around 35. 35 CDT codes typically amount to about like 95% of all the revenue you do. Obviously, we all know that there's like 800 CDT codes out there. Nobody does all 800, obviously, because there's multi-specialties within that. Nobody ever does that. But most practices typically do anywhere from 20 to 35 of those CDT codes. 95% of the time. And so why you want to know what those codes are is when you're evaluating offers from insurance companies, we want to look at those codes first. Additionally, when we're doing all these other things I've been talking about, so you're plugging stuff into a spreadsheet, instead of plugging in 800 CDT codes, most of which don't matter because you don't do them, we want to start with those 35 that matter the most to you, because that's going to move the needle the most, okay? So use those procedures, plug those into a spreadsheet so you know code, quantity, and production, and then sort by production so you can find your top 35. Now, when you started to approach the negotiation process, a couple things to consider. Most insurance companies will consider negotiations every 2 to 3 years. So there's some key words in that sentence. Most and consider, right? So most insurance companies will consider negotiations. Doesn't mean all of them will or that they will negotiate. A lot of PPOs have seasons of times where they're more willing to negotiate than others. A lot of PPOs typically will negotiate regularly. Some PPOs almost never negotiate, just depends on the insurance company. But most of them will consider it every 2 to 3 years, okay? It also depends on a lot of other variables. What are you paid now? How does that compare to doctors in your area? Are they willing and ready to negotiate? Do they have a budget for it? Have you talked to the right person? All those things will take into consideration. So if you want to start with that, you want to negotiate on your own, the best place to start is with point of contacts that you already have. If you already worked with an insurance company before or a representative, I'd recommend starting there. Otherwise, you can reach out to provider relations and request what's called a fee schedule increase. So you could say something to the effect of, we're unhappy with our reimbursements, we'd like them evaluated, we'd like to request a fee schedule increase, something of that effect. Now, once you've reached out to the insurance company, if they start to come back with offers, fantastic. However, before you start reaching out, another thing you want to think about is the participation that you've gathered at the very beginning at step 1 is going to come into play here immediately. So you need to pay attention to your existing PPO participation and any existing leasing arrangements. So what that means is you need to ask for increases on the fee schedules that you're actually being paid on. For example, so like we talked about earlier, if you're a network with Guardian, but you're being leased through Aetna, right? That means for Aetna and Guardian patients, you're paid on Aetna's fee schedule. So if you want to negotiate for Guardian, who do you negotiate with first? You would approach Aetna first, right? Because that's the fee schedule that's being paid for both Aetna patients and Guardian patients, right? Then we'll talk about when should you approach Guardian, or when should you approach basically the main payer and the minor payer. When should you approach the main payer first, right? That's who you should negotiate with first. When you approach the minor payer or the secondary payer is what we talk about in terms of optimization, which we'll get to in a couple more slides, right? So again, if you reach out to Guardian and you're not paying attention to your participation, Guardian will say, sure, we're willing to negotiate with you. Here's a proposed fee schedule. We don't have you under a direct contract. Here's also an application. And if somebody's not paying attention and they're doing this, they may then credential your providers directly with Guardian under that new fee schedule, which could be a good thing, or it switches your participation entirely. And if that fee schedule is slightly worse, then now you just dropped your participation down to a worse fee schedule. So that's why the participation matters. Looking at who am I participating with? Who should I talk to first? That's why we're gathering participation at the very beginning. If an insurance company comes back, they're willing to negotiate with you. It gets exciting when practices kind of get like tunnel vision and they get excited about that and they want to sign the offer. But there's a couple of calculations to take into consideration before you accept an offer. So number one, using those previous steps, identify those 35 procedure codes that matter the most in the same spreadsheet, plug in those codes, plug in what you're being paid for that insurance company right now, right? So column 1, procedures. Column 2, what am I being paid on each of those procedures on my current fee schedule? Column 3, what is this new fee schedule paying me, right? Column 4, how many times a year do I do those procedures? And then do the math, right? Is it going up or is it going down? And the reason why it could go down is because sometimes it's give and take. Insurance companies will, in their offer, say, okay, we'll pay you more on these codes. We're going to take a little bit away from here. So annual frequency matters quite a bit in this equation. So pay attention to that. When you're evaluating each of these offers, if I do a procedure a certain amount of times, it's going to affect how much I end up making. So a $100 procedure increase could be outweighed by a $5 procedure decrease, depending on the frequency. So if I do this procedure 2,000 times a year, and it just went by down $5, but I did this one 20 times a year, and it went up by $100, depending on the math, I might actually end up losing money. So looking at the frequency again, insurance companies are smart and they're taking this into consideration when they're providing you with an offer. So if you're not running that math, you could end up actually dropping your fee schedule down, even though it felt like it was going up. Okay. So once you've done that math, another thing to consider is how does this compare against my average fee schedule? So maybe I'd also recommend throwing in all of your fee schedules that you're currently in part or in place with now. What am I being paid? What's my average reimbursement? Is this above my average reimbursement? That's another litmus test that you can use. Okay. If you accept a fee schedule from an insurance company and you accept that increase, you want to do a couple of things. Number one, you're going to have to sign it. You're going to send it off to the insurance company. Most of the time, it takes 30 to 90 days to go into effect. And so it's not going into effect immediately. Once you've signed it, they should be able to give you an effective date saying, okay, this will go into effect January 1st. So what you're going to want to do is audit every single EOB you get back from that insurance company with a service date on January 1st or after to verify, am I being paid under this new fee schedule? Because if I don't audit that, how do I know it works, right? How do I know I'm getting paid correctly? Because a lot of times mistakes happen or it gets delayed or I ended up not sending it to the right person. So I've had lots of practices that we've talked to that think they negotiated, they signed an offer, it never went into place, or they didn't send it to the right place. And they never checked their EOBs, they're not auditing them regularly, and it never actually fell into place. So follow through, make sure that that falls into place, right? So those are those 3 steps that we recommend if you're going to negotiate on your own. Number 3, let's talk about what's the calculation you can use if you're going to forecast what your return on investment could be through negotiations. All right, number 3. Here are the 3 steps. Number 1, we'll talk about how to ensure your PPO fee schedules are competitive. So we talked about the math, talked about the how. Let's talk about whether or not you should do it. So we're going to talk about if you get an offer, how do you know if it's competitive, not just against your existing fee schedules? How do I know this is a good offer for my area, right? Number 2, how do you minimize and maximize optimization risks and opportunities? So we'll talk about what is optimization as a strategy to increase fee schedules, what are the risks and the benefits, and how to minimize those and maximize the benefits. The third one we'll talk about is that formula. If you're going to negotiate and improve your reimbursements, what's the ROI calculation you can use? So let's jump into each of those steps. All right, number 1, how do we ensure our PPO fee schedules are competitive for our area? Couple things to take into consideration. Number 1, if you've accepted a new fee schedule, so you went through the effort of negotiating, you looked at the math, you felt good about it, you signed off on it, sent it back to the insurance company, most PPOs will lock you into those rates for at least 2 years. When I say lock you in, that just means they won't renegotiate with you. It doesn't mean that you can't ever terminate. You can always terminate a contract with an insurance company and go out of network. What I mean is they will not renegotiate. So again, it's like agreeing to pay a house, like a specific price for a house. Once you've agreed to pay that and you've signed it and you've paid it, you can't go back and get money back, right? Once you've agreed to the specific reimbursement rate, you're going to get paid those reimbursements. So if you don't want to get locked into a low fee schedule, then take that into consideration. If you want to make sure that your fee schedules are competitive for your area, Unitas has that data. We have the data to compare your offers to determine are they competitive for your area or not. One of the things that we do is we represent thousands of locations nationwide, so we have a large database of fee schedules. Because of the NDAs that we've signed with clients and the NDAs that we've signed with insurance companies, we agree to not share that data with clients. We're never going to say, hey, Dr. Smith, welcome aboard. Did you know Dr. Johnson down the street gets paid $300 more than you? That's not something that we'll ever do for a couple of reasons. Number 1, we've signed NDAs with all these parties. And number 2, nothing will tick you off more than knowing that you're getting paid way less. But what we can do is we can know, okay, he is paid way less. He's not happy with his reimbursements. So let's go negotiate. So when we negotiate with an insurance company, as an intermediary in this equation, insurance companies know who we are. They know how many locations we represent. They know that we're aware of what a competitive fee schedule looks like. And so not only do we have high-level insurance contacts that we interact with regularly, they know that we're aware of what a fair reimbursement rate looks like. So when we negotiate back and forth, we're pushing to get to at or above what we consider the average or fair reimbursement for your area. And so a lot of times we can kind of cut through that crap that you might have to deal with is if you're negotiating on your own and an insurance company comes back with an offer, what do you have to compare that against, right? Your own fee schedules. So you could say, all right, here's an offer from this insurance. It's better than the one I'm paid now. It's better than most of my other PPOs. So I guess it's good. How do we know, right? So if I go to sell my house today, luckily there's Zillow. I can go to Zillow and I can figure out what my neighbors sold their houses for. Zillow for reimbursement rates doesn't exist. Doesn't exist because You've signed NDAs with insurance companies that preclude you from sharing fees, and insurance companies have precluded from sharing fees with each other. So there's not really a database out there that exists for you to know what a fair reimbursement rate looks like. So working with a third party like Unitas to represent you allows us, you get the benefit of knowing that we have access to this information because of how large our client base is. So that way we do have the database to use to your advantage. Okay. But not only do we have the data to compare, but we also have, because this is all we do, we have higher level dedicated insurance contacts with many insurance companies that practices will never have access to, right? And so if you're negotiating on your own and you don't have anybody to work with, you're going to start with provider relations, which might be the right person to talk to, might not be the right person to talk to. But we interact with lots of high-level insurance company representatives because they know how many clients we represent. Additionally, we credential thousands of providers every year with insurance companies. So we bring a lot to the table in terms of value and a value proposition to insurance, which allows us to negotiate at a high level. Practices can't replicate that, right? We have over 1,800 locations. So there isn't a DSO, there isn't a single location on the planet that has an amount of locations that we represent, which is what allows us to negotiate at a high level with insurance companies. So not only can we negotiate on your behalf, but like I've said, we've negotiated on behalf of thousands of practices nationwide and continue to do so. Additionally, we have a highly trained team. This is all they do. We've got collectively years of experience. We've got a proven track record. We've got a good process in place. This is all we do, right? Is negotiate, optimize, and credential. Okay. So if you want to ensure that you're getting your fee schedules, that they're getting paid competitively for your area, you need to work with a company like Unitas in order to ensure that those are competitive. Now let's talk about second strategy, which is optimization. So why is optimization an even better strategy or a better opportunity than just negotiating on its own? Well, what we mean by optimization, which I highlighted about 10 minutes ago, was based on how you currently participate with an insurance company, Unitas can identify other participation types, other arrangements that might be more profitable than just negotiating with an insurance company alone. Many insurance companies have multiple paths to participation, right? They lease from lots of different insurance companies. And so we've helped thousands of practices to take advantage of this web that exists in the marketplace and optimized it so that way people are paid on the best possible fee schedules for each of the carriers. Not only that, we understand how to make it work. We understand how to shift participation so that way it can actually come to fruition. We know what the risks are that are involved, and we know how long it takes. So these are like very complicated football plays. We've ran them day after day, year after year, so we know how to run this. Practices cannot duplicate optimization on their own. The reason why is because they don't do it enough. They don't know all the different networks and pairs and all the different PPOs that lease from each other by state. They don't know what the risks are. They don't know the timing for that state or that given insurance company. So this is nothing that I would ever recommend a practice does on their own because it's just far too complicated. Negotiations, practices can do on their own. If they want to make sure that they're maximizing the leverage and having competitive offers and getting to the right person, then you would work with Unitas. Additionally, if you want to optimize, which is an even better way to increase fee schedules, you have to work with somebody like Unitas because you have to be a conglomerate like us that has this many locations across this many states to understand the sheer number of opportunities and how to take advantage of them from optimization. So let me dive in and give you a more real life example of what I mean when I'm talking about optimization. So let's go back to the previous example. You've directly contracted with this orange insurance company. You're agreeing to be paid under their fee schedule. So let's just talk about a pro fee. If you're getting paid $85 from this insurance company for a pro fee, fantastic, right? Green insurance company comes along, leases from orange, and then for green patients, you're also paid $85, right? They're basically just borrowing that fee schedule. But we want both patients to be paid on the best fee schedule. So how do we do that? We go to the orange company first. We try to negotiate this existing fee schedule. If it goes up, awesome, right? If it doesn't, that's okay. We've got other options. Another thing we're going to do after we've negotiated here is go to the green insurance company and say, hey, green insurance company, we've got these doctors here. They might want to directly contract with you. They don't want to be leased. What's the best offer you're willing to pay them if they directly contract? Now, if you're thinking through this and you're following, you're probably going to be like, well, why would they want to give us a better fee schedule? Like, obviously, they're not going to come back with something better. Well, the answer is actually they might come back with a better fee schedule because leasing you from Orange Insurance Company isn't free. They have to pay for that, right? And so a lot of times it's more profitable for them in the long run to pay you on a better fee schedule directly than it is to lease you from an insurance company. or depending on their particular goals for that year, if they're trying to grow their own proprietary network, they might want to create direct contracts, even if it means paying a little bit more. So if Green comes back with a better offer, fantastic. We need to optimize you away from Orange and directly contract you with Green. So we'll fill out the proper paperwork to make this particular situation switch, with Green insurance being paid through Green insurance instead of being paid through Orange insurance, okay? So that's one optimization example. Even more complicated scenario is, okay, after we've gotten Green optimized, well, what about Orange, right? Or what if we go to a Green insurance company, if they don't come back with an offer that can beat the Orange, we don't stop there either. This Green insurance company, if we just said this is Guardian, for example, Guardian, along with almost every other insurance company out there, leases actively from tons of different insurance companies. So there's a lot of options out there for you, right? There's pros and cons to each of those. There's some pros and cons to being direct versus leased. But what do those other fee schedules look like, right? If we go through Sun Life or Carrington or Connection or Dynamax, right? Or Principal or Emeritus, depending on the insurance companies we're talking about, they all have their own fee schedules. So odds are there's multiple, if not at least one, of those existing relationships that has a fee schedule that's better than not only what the Green insurance company can offer, but better than what the Orange insurance company can offer. That's true optimization. It's taking a look at this web, zooming out per insurance company and saying, okay, for this insurance company, it doesn't really matter how I'm participating now. I want to know all the ways I can participate. So what does this carrier pay? What does this carrier pay? So if there's 5 ways, I'm going to go collect all those fee schedules, put them into a report, figure out which of those fee schedules is the most profitable for my particular practice. And then at Unitas, I'm going to fill out the paperwork and call the insurance companies in the particular order to make sure that I only get paid through the best option. Does that make sense to everybody? So that's optimization. It's not just about saying, how can I go from being leased to being direct? That's not what it's about at all. It's about every insurance company, almost every insurance company out there has multiple ways I can participate. I'm only in one of those ways. So the law of probability would state that I probably can get paid better under a different fee schedule than I'm paid on now. And so that's what we're looking into, is when we talk about optimization, we're optimizing this web, maximizing it for you. So that's optimization. Hopefully that's made sense. Last thing I'll talk about is, what's the return on investment calculation that you can run if you're looking to negotiate your insurance companies with your insurance fee schedules. So for over 10 years, like I said, Unitas has implemented this plan and this framework for thousands of dentists across the country. We've helped pioneer representation in this area for dentists, so we know what our average result is. So if you were to do this on your own, I have no idea what that projected return on investment would be, because there's too many variables that I'm not controlling. If I control the variables and we're negotiating on your behalf and we're optimizing, I know what our average experience is. So I can project the return on investment, the ROI, through our average results if you were to work with Unitas, okay? So what our average is it's about around a 10% increase over all of the fee schedules. So if you come on, we negotiate 8 of your PPOs, on average, those go up by about 10%. So that means some could go up by 2%, some could go up by 50%. On average, it's around 10%. Our below average office is around 4%, above average is around 18%. How that translates to an actual ROI for your practice comes down to 2 pieces of information. What is your average annual production? Or if you know your collections, you can use that. And then what is to your best estimate, what percentage of your patient base is covered by negotiable or optimizable, if you can call that a word, PPOs, right? So in most cases, most practices have a patient base that looks like this. It's a pie chart that probably around 5 to 10% is fee-for-service, patients that don't have insurance. Another 5 or 10% might be Medicare, Medicaid, military plans, right? Access, there's going to be all those different levels. Now, another insurance company that historically doesn't typically negotiate in each state is Delta. So Delta is one of those insurance companies that historically hasn't been willing to negotiate. Doesn't mean they never will, but it's very, very rare for us. So if you take out Delta, Medicare, Medicaid, TRICARE, military, cash paying, all the things that won't improve, all the remaining insurance companies typically have a history of negotiating. So what's that percentage of that pie? If we're being conservative, let's say it's at least 50% of that pie. So $1 million, 50% of your production is negotiable. 500,000 can be manipulated at 10%. That's $50,000. So again, the math is really easy. You just start with whatever your production or collection number is that you have. What percentage do you think is covered by negotiable insurance? And then throw our average on top of that. So that's how you would project your potential ROI based off of our average results. Typically, this number is pretty substantial. As long as you're doing more than $250,000 a year in production, this number is pretty substantial and well above what our average service fee is to do this for practice, which is why we have so many practices that do this, because it has a pretty positive ROI. Here's some case studies and actual results from real clients. So for Dr. Morgan in North Carolina, we negotiated 5 insurance contracts. We optimized 2 particular networks that resulted in over $64,000 in projected PPO revenue increase. Dr. Baker, 5 negotiations, 3 optimizations, over $79,000. And Dr. Young, over $100,000, 7 PPOs, 4 optimizations. So like you can see, there's a ton of opportunity. If you've never negotiated, there's even more opportunity. If it's been more than 2 years since you've negotiated, you're due to negotiate, you're due for an increase. And there's always optimization potential, no matter where you're at in your timeline. So that's why I recommend a lot of practices do this, and just a matter of implementing the framework. Now you just need to decide, do I want to do it myself, or do I want the experts at Unitas to do it? So recapping what we talked about today, number 1, you want to understand your PPO participation in your current reimbursements. You have to know what you're starting with, because you have to know who to talk to first. The next thing is you need to know how to approach negotiations. The third thing is you need to maximize your negotiation opportunities, and you need to make sure that you understand how optimization works. Okay. Now, that was a ton of information. I know everybody's feeling like information overload right now, but if it's all right with you, I want to remind everybody, go download this framework, PPOguide.com. It's absolutely free. Like, when I know if you're still on the webinar today and I haven't lost your interest at this point, you're probably thinking, okay, there's something I definitely got to do. But if I had to make a guess, what's going to happen, depending on whenever you're watching this recording, either it's at night, so you're going to go to sleep and go watch a TV show or go deal with your family. Or if you're in the office, right, what's going to happen is you're going to immediately go back to work, which is I'm treating patients, or I'm scheduling appointments, or I'm submitting claims, or I'm working with them in the office, or I'm cleaning toilets. Like, I'm doing a bunch of other stuff. Nobody has time for this. So obviously your practice needs higher PPO reimbursements. That's why you're on the call today. If it's okay with you, I want to make everybody who is on the call a special offer to help you implement all this information way faster than just downloading the guide and doing it yourself. So all you got to do is go schedule a free PPO consultation with our team. To do that, you go to PPOguide.com/go, or scan that QR code. Or if that's not working, you can just go to our website. It's PPOsolutions.com. But if you go and schedule through this link, you'll get a free 30-minute consultation with our team. What we'll do is we'll talk to you about your specific insurances, your history with negotiations, your history with being paid by the PPOs. We'll help you calculate your potential ROI for your particular practice, identify which service you're best suited for, and figure out if this even makes sense. We turn away a lot of practices because you might not be a good fit for either for us or to even do it on your own. We'll give you a good direction of which way you should go. If you give us the opportunity to explain how our service works, and if we're a good fit, and give you the opportunity to explain how we can help you, and you complete that consultation, we'll give you these awesome limited time, these 3 bonuses. All you have to do is schedule and complete this consultation, and we'll send them out to you. Number 1, who likes calling insurance companies? Nobody. Who likes sitting on hold with insurance companies for 3 hours and then it just gets disconnected? Nobody, right? If that's not really resonating with you, odds are you aren't calling insurance companies. So if you ask anybody at your office if they like calling insurance, they're going to say absolutely not. The reason why is because they're probably calling the wrong phone number, because they change all the time. Well, who has one of the best databases of phone numbers for insurance companies in the country? Unitas Dental. Why? Because we call them every single day. And so if you want our proprietary PPO provider relations master contact list, what phone numbers to call for every insurance company, we make hundreds, if not thousands of phone calls every month. If you want a master contact list and you want to save hours of time sitting on hold and you want to collect your own PPO participation way faster, this is easily $199 value. If I were to sell this to you, you're getting it absolutely free by scheduling and completing this consultation. So that right there is worth all of that and then some to just have a consultation with their team. If you printed this out and gave it to your front desk, they would worship you. They'd print it out, they'd laminate it, they think it's the best thing in the world because it's going to save so much time. I can't tell you from experience, having called insurance companies, how frustrating it is when you've called the wrong number, you sat on hold for 45 minutes, and then the call just drops. Or you get to the wrong department just for them to answer and be like, oh, sorry, I got to redirect you. And they sit on hold again for 45 more minutes. So if you want the right numbers, PPO provider relations contact list. Okay. Second thing is if you want the e-guide of 35 of the most common insurance problems and how to avoid them, then we can give that to you as well. Story behind this is after 10 years of us doing this, negotiating, optimizing, credentialing, we get a lot of questions about insurance that we have no idea how to answer, or it's not our wheelhouse. So instead of us saying, I have no idea, good luck, what we've done is we've gone out and figured out what the answer is or what company has the answer, gotten that into a support document of sorts, a standard operating procedure, and we give this to our clients all the time saying, here's the answer, here's where you need to go to figure this out, right? So if you want 35 of the most popular insurance problems and how you can avoid them, we've compiled those into an ebook. So down coding, balance billing, out-of-network benefits, if you're trying to change your tax ID number, key steps to adding an associate, so how to credential them correctly. So if you want to save yourself the hours and hours of time that eons and eons passive office managers before you have dealt with and had to figure out, and we've had to help figure out, then $299 value easily for that ebook. All you got to do is complete the consultation. And like Bob Barker says, but wait, there's more, right? The last thing is the fee schedule analysis tool. So this is something that I've built personally for you. This is the exact same tool that we use to analyze our own clients' reimbursement rates. So if you want to use this tool to analyze your UCRs versus your fee schedules, so if you want to know, are my UCRs priced too low against my fee schedules? How do my reimbursement rates with my PPOs compare against each other? Who's my highest reimbursing PPO? If you want that all into an easy-to-use spreadsheet with all the formulas already ready, automated, and all the calculations run, I built that for you, right? I built that for you. It's absolutely ready. It's in a Google Sheet template. You can either use it in Google Sheets or you can download it into Excel. Easily a $499 value. It's not something we even give to clients. This is something we'll give to you. If you'll go download that guide and you'll schedule that call and complete it, we are happy to send this information over to you. So let's recap. Before I let you guys go, all the different wonderful things you're going to get. Number one, the PPO evaluation consultation. So again, if we can work for you, fantastic value, would be able to increase your ROI increase your PPO reimbursements. Number two, the 35 most common insurance problems, the PPO provider relations contact list. So if you want your office manager to love you and be super excited about calling because she or he's not calling the wrong phone number, that's great. Last thing is PPO fee schedule analysis tool, hours of saved time, higher reimbursement rates if you work with Unitas, easily a $997 value, getting absolutely free. All you have to do is schedule, complete this consultation, and we'd love to work with you guys. But if we can't, fantastic. We'll still send you the tools anyways. So go to ppoguide.com/go or scan that QR code. For some reason, that link's not working, or if you're just feeling lazy today, no big deal. Just go to pposolutions.com and we'll send you those after you have a consultation. All right. Now, I know this is recorded, so I wanted to go through some of the frequently asked questions that I know most practices are going to be thinking in their mind. If I haven't answered any of your questions today, then feel free to email us at PPOsolutions, plural, @uniteddental.com, and we will reach out to you to answer any questions you have. So here are some of the top questions. Are there any PPOs that won't negotiate? Like I said earlier, really the main insurance company that historically has been unwilling to negotiate most of the time has been Delta. I'm not going to say that they'll never negotiate, but it's been pretty historically unsuccessful for us. Most other insurance companies, if they're PPOs, have had a history of negotiating. We've had success with them. Second one is we're thinking about dropping or adding insurances. So is that something that you can help with? Absolutely. We have services that are geared towards all of those situations. Additionally, another question might be, I'm opening or I'm purchasing a practice. How do I set up my PPOs? Do I need to get credentialed if I'm already a network on another location? What should I do? And the answer is absolutely. You have to credential at every location that you start, join, or buy, and we can help you with that as well. We have a credentialing service a la carte. We also include it in our negotiation service, so we can talk to you about that. Or maybe you're adding an associate and you want them to treat insured patients, but they're not credentialed yet. So you're just wondering, well, how do I get them in network? Can I just bill under me until they're in network? The answer is every doctor that's treating patients needs to be credentialed in order for them to be paid in network. So the faster you can get them credentialed, the faster you'll get paid in network. And we can help you with that. Last thing is, maybe you're thinking this, can we work with the Unitas? Obviously you can. And the answer to what do we charge is it depends on the it depends on the service that we implement for you. So whether you're new or whether you're old or whether you have a lot of PPOs or whether you're in network with zero and you're trying to join, we have different services and different options for each of you. So all the more reason to schedule that consultation. Go to ppoguide.com/go, schedule that, and we'll talk to you about the services that you're best fit for, talk to you about the pricing and help you enroll. All right. 5 o'clock on the hour, Shirley. I think that was probably the best time I've ever done. That was perfection.
That was really wonderful, and so much great information. And you got all those wonderful FAQs in there. And I also went ahead and popped in the email where you can email Unitas with any questions as well. So that's in the chat. Thank you so much, Phylip. That was really awesome. A really wonderful presentation tonight. I want to thank everyone for joining us as well. And yes, you guys have the emails again, webinars@henryschein.com. We will see you very soon. Have a wonderful night. We look forward to seeing you guys on future webinars.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Shirley. Have a great night.
Thank you. Have a great night. Bye.